and I'll settle back in. Oh. Here's a plan. Get to it again, I'm sure. That medical problems coming back. Oh. Right? Everybody's here, it's still pretty cramped. Although I've never sat at that. 6:29, Jerry, we got another minute.
Like the Republicans, we could be like the Republicans now, so we'll just adjourn right as soon as you say it and call the order.
Motion to adjourn.
We'll take it to the back or give you up.
What time is it?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Village of Land and Planning Commission meeting to order on Thursday, September 28th at 6:30 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remove any headgear.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that.
Anyone else would like to take a moment to silence your phones? Great. Item 3, roll call. Grimm.
Here.
Lake. Absent. Nellis is absent. Newman.
Here.
Janice is absent. Haylightner. Here. And Yates is here. Statement of public notice.
Has been posted.
Discussion and possible approval of planning commission meeting minutes from 7/27/23.
Wanted to approve the minutes from the Plan Commission 7/27/23. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments? Sure.
The only, and I'm not sure if this is a planning commission issue or if it should be taken up with Whispering Ridge, the condo complex. But when you're coming from Sussex into Lannon, the street signs, they're so faded you can't read the street name. So I don't know if it's something that the plan commission needs to approach them with, or we need to go to Anna and talk to them about it. But I noticed it the other day that you can't make out the names of the road at just that entrance.
Sure. Those are private roads, so
Yeah.
it's probably the responsibility of the association to replace those.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? Yes, sir.
On Summers 19543 West Main Street. I see Saywall Developments is on here tonight, which I think is a good thing. But I'm wondering what's going on at Whispering Ridge, because last August they were supposed to come back with a plan for replacing their trees. We are now in September, 15 months later. And what has been accomplished there?
I'll check in with them again.
And one more question, Patrick. on this meeting you're having for beautification next week, are there plans to have one at night or on a Saturday so residents can attend in the future?
Jan is putting that meeting together, and that's all I know at this point. She has not confirmed any dates or times with me.
Well, there's one that's posted for October 4th.
That's for businesses, business.
Oh, that is just a meet and greet.
Right,
Okay,
Apparently, the police department has done that before for some of the LBA businesses and things like that. So it's just myself and the chief and donuts and coffee or something and.
there was a residence one prior to that, I don't remember the date. Forgive me for that, but there was a resident. For the beautification. Month and a half or 2 months ago. I don't know if there was a plan for another one.
I'm just asking if there's something in the future that the residents can attend when that comes up again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, citizen comments? Going once, twice, so. Item 7, discussion of possible action on amended plan of operation for AFW and leasers at 21020 West Good Hope Road, Landon, Wisconsin. 53046, and I think Hector wanted to go through some clarifying items. Each of the commission members, you should have received a handout from Hector as well.
I have extra copies if anybody in the audience wants to see these.
Anybody else want?
The item number 6, excuse me, number 7 pertains to a special use permit, which is required in a situation where a contractor yard is contemplated. What I'd like to do is walk you through the provisions of the ordinance, because I think in the past, the village, due to limited resources, has honored these requirements minimally. And I think that with the changing complexion of the community moving towards its projected master plan character, which is to become basically fundamentally a residential community, there has to be sensitivity to the close regulation here. First of all, if you look on page number 2, line 60, contractors' yards are allowed in a zoning district where the zoning is L1 light industrial district. And it's important to keep in mind what the purpose is, looking at lines 61 to 65. This district is intended to provide for the orderly and attractive grouping in appropriately landscaped grounds of any manufacturing or industrial operation, which on the basis of actual physical and operational characteristics would not be detrimental to the surrounding area or to the community as a whole by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, traffic, physical appearance, or other similar factors, and to establish such regulatory controls as will reasonably ensure compatibility with the surrounding area in this respect. If you look at the GIS map of Waukesha County, just to use the boundary, AFW boundary parcel as an example, the village has launched into a process to promote housing development in the Cawley Farm property to the west and to the north, I believe. So I think it behooves the village to basically be sensitive to the fact that what may have not existed in the past will exist in the future, and the goal of zoning is to avoid conflict. Now, on page 3, lines 103 through 106, we have the provision that allows for a contractor storage yard. A contractor storage yard, as defined in 78-8, may be allowed as a special use, provided a special use permit has been obtained pursuant to section 7855 and 7856, which I have in here, as well as the definitions. Special use permit for this use shall be reviewable every 24 months to confirm compliance with their terms and to confirm the absence of undesirable impacts on nearby properties. So with that in mind, I draw your attention to page number 1, line number 2. The definition of a contractor's yard. Contractor's yard means exterior premises on which building materials, cement blocks, lumber, etc., landscaping materials, sand, gravel, stone, railroad ties, etc., and or construction type equipment, bulldozers, steam shovels, trucks, etc., are stored. So the definition is not an open-ended definition. Now, to get a special use permit, you have to apply under 7855. If you look at line number 7 on page 1 through 9, special uses are a category of land use subject to certain additional controls that apply to the land uses permitted by right, while avoiding the public hearing process required of land use permitted as a conditional use. And then if we look at line 24 through 28 on the same first page, special uses are those uses that have the potential to create impacts on nearby properties if allowed to develop simply under the general requirements of the zoning code. In order to prevent this from occurring, all special uses are required to meet certain requirements applicable only to special uses, in addition to the general requirements of the zoning code and the requirements of the zoning district in which the subject property is located. And then in terms of the regulation and enforcement, if you look at lines 34 through 36, any special use found not to be in compliance with the terms of the zoning code shall be considered in violation of the zoning code and shall be subject to all applicable procedures and penalties. So suffice it to say that to apply for a special use permit, the provisions that end at the very end of page 1 on line 37 through 39, all applications for proposed special uses shall be approved as complete by the Plan Commission prior to certification of the proposed special use. That complete application shall be comprised of the following. And there are a number of requirements which are listed in lines 40 through 47 on page 2. Certified survey map, copy of deed restriction, the dimensions of all buildings, the locations of any easements, the dimension of all setbacks for each lot, the location of proposed driveway and with detailed building plans. And I, or the plan commission, any other information required by the zoning administrator, building inspector, or the plan commission. And I take you through these provisions because not many people have the advantage of knowing what they are. But you as a plan commission, in light of the changing demographics in this community in terms of housing, should be sensitive to these requirements. Earlier today, Ben Wood and I spoke about the application submitted under item number 7. And it was our general conclusion that while these applications had a good running start towards submitting the information required, there is missing information. And the thing that we talked about specifically was, does a landowner, such as, for example, AFW Foundry, have the ability to satisfy all the conditions and then proceed without the tenants who may be there for subleasing or renting space, having to apply for their own. Excuse me. Unlike a situation where you have a multifamily apartment building, where upfront you're really controlling the use. Everyone has so many square feet, a bathroom, living room, and so forth. The use is going to be for basic domestic living. The variety of businesses that seek out areas within facilities such as that, which is owned by AFW Foundry, is very varied and range, in my opinion, from not necessarily being manufacturing in the traditional sense, but service agencies. And I think that the Plan Commission needs to think about what the parameters are going to be. And it's my legal recommendation to the Plan Commission that subtenants, lessees, renters are permitted, provided those subunits occupying space come in and obtain their own special use permit and are regulated by the village in the manner provided in the ordinances. Should you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Does the use that we think is going on there only come under contractor's yard, or are there any other?
I don't know. First of all, other than the materials that were submitted, that's the only knowledge that we I can recall that years ago we had a variety of uses about which we were, I think, in the dark. I think Ben has some comments.
Just to address this question real briefly, I would say based on what's been submitted, yeah, it only works under contractor storage yard.
In my sort of review of all this, you know, just, I'm not even gonna touch the HN branch area. But Custom Cuts and Nick and Dan's, you know, the arborist that used to be there is no longer there. Okay,
Mr. Barney.
Miss Burnham. But what's operating now, if you look at our ordinances under 7858, Custom Cuts and Nick and Dan's would come under conditional use permit requirement because it's a firewood processing. Lock gates, there's that has lock gates. There's other things under the chapter. It's 7858 paragraph 24, and that's just because they're processing wood there, and it's got to be fire department inspection too on that then. Okay, and because arborist is gone, everything that arborist had, I just looked at their file. Is all history, and nothing applies to these, so they would have to have a conditional use permit. The thing that I noticed on all these areas, the restroom facilities, all these people have employees and stuff like that, there's no facilities. Okay,
There's a metro there.
there's no facilities, and any landscape, any filling of moving of material to level out areas, I don't see a grading permit. I don't know what the wetlands are, what happened to runoffs now. I don't think our engineering has been aware of, that kind of work, okay? Now, the other item is now if we just look at HM Brandt, they have a rock pile there, concrete pile they want to crush. Nowhere do we have rock crushing in light industry. We only have it in the quarries, and that's by permit. And to get a permit for rock crushing, they have to go to the village board 60 days prior to any
15.
crushing. Okay, so, and then they got a shingle pile. They don't even know what they're gonna do with the shingle pile.
It's not true.
The used shingle pile that's sitting there can only be hauled away. They have no permits from the DNR to shred it. Because they have to meet DNR permits for all that. So, there's a lot of areas on here where certified survey maps and stuff like that for all this area. It needs to be a little bit more showing us where the setbacks are and all that stuff also. And that's just what I looked at, for the last 3 days.
Well, I agree with the employees part of it, that I think they were listing the employees of the company and not. That seems like just a yard, not necessarily where people are gonna be working out of. And if they are working out of, do we have concern about facilities and?
Well, I think in light industry, I think it says something about the facilities, line 74 on page 2, development shall be approved with underground utilities. That sounds like sewer and water to me. Because you're gonna have buildings and stuff like that, light industry, you would have some sort of control over the way the appearance of the whole area is.
Well, my initial reaction to that is, I think that's probably why contractor storage yards require a special use permit. Is to identify, given the specifics to an operation, do they really need sewer and water for their contractor's yard or not? Some of those things can be.
Yeah, but that should all be answered,
Yeah,
through a special permit.
Right.
And that's why, it just all of a sudden, AFW, I guess, are we allowing AFW in the first part of this to create this facility, their area? I think that's what we're looking at. Or are we just saying, okay, AFW, can wash their hands of it, but every sublease, how do we proceed with this? Hector, is what
I'm recommending that every user there, the owner and any sublessees or renters qualify for a special use permit individually. Because I think in some respects, the Plan Commission can't possibly anticipate every possible need that a renter would have. For example, bathroom facilities. It's possible that there may be a consolidated facility available for the employees of the various tenants in a sanitary, orderly manner, and the village, I think, should in good faith try to honor that. The problem is that the application that I saw from AFW Foundry is minimal. It doesn't recognize the fact that there are gonna be others there. And they, as a landowner, need to come in with specifics, okay, who is going to be where? As opposed to a GIS snapshot and highlighting in yellow and so forth. Because it puts the village at a real disadvantage. 2 years pass, and we, in fairness, review everything, but what are we reviewing specifically?
Did you guys submit this, Mike? This version, this drawing of the area with all the breakouts of who's where and?
Yeah. With the, we have been working in conjunction. As part of bathroom facilities, we at any time can use AFW's bathroom facilities if that needed. There is, at any given time, maybe one person on that property. The trucks come in, drop off, roll off boxes, dumpster boxes, pick up. There's been a machine over there that has been down that we could not move to another facility because it had a hydraulic pump, which had to come from the UK. 4 months, we had to wait for that. Okay, that has been rectified and fixed actually this week. That pump came in, it got put into a machine. So one individual was there. Chris from Custom Cuts comes in and on occasion and cuts up firewood for his operation. He sells firewood, mostly to the community. Dan comes in, he has, which is Nick and Dan, he comes in, he parks, which is all on the applications, 3 or 4 trucks. And also has 3 dumpsters, I think, that he parks there. And he's in there for 10-15 minutes. So when we're talking about employees, there's really not any employees there. This is strictly used as a yard. Basically, we call it a switch yard. It's for storing basically overabundance equipment that comes in off a job site that, you know, it's gonna go over to the repair shop, different things like that. Store dumpsters, at least on the HM brand side. Nick and Dan, they store 3 or 4 trucks there. I think they have a bucket truck there. Is one of the items, and then 2 or 3 dumpsters. And they're virtually there. If they're 10 out of there 10 minutes a day, that's a lot. And that's 2 people, Nick and his wife, Dan and his wife, Nick. The traffic control company that's there, they've been there temporarily because they are leasing my other building over off of Waukesha Avenue. And we were simply waiting for Sussex through all of the paperwork and different things that they had to go through for their approval with their planning and commission. And that just happened on the last meeting on Tuesday. And that's proof they're moving all their stuff over to the other facility. So in a day's time, you know, my trucks come in and out for a switch of dumpsters, you know, at most probably half dozen times a day. There is a metro that is there and has been there for a long time. And it's not like any of these operations have changed in any way for, well, at least on Custom Cuts and Dan and Nick have been there, I'm gonna say approximately 8 years. That was all through Ross Barnacle. Chris has been there, which he was one of Ross's employees. He's been there 25 years. You know, and now all of this sudden, this stuff is all coming up and it's never been a problem to any neighbor, any complaint, nothing. For all of these years, now it's all of a sudden becoming an issue.
Unfortunately, this isn't your problem as I see it. It's AFW's problem.
But why? They aren't doing anything wrong except renting me
Well,
or
they-
leasing
If
me.
this is their plan of operations, I have a problem with it because.
But that's their plan of operations for their operation.
And since they own the property, until they tell us what they're gonna do with the property.
Well, I wanna buy the property. Okay, and
Let me just-
beautify it like I am doing already.
Just let us discuss a few things and get a couple of clarifications.
Well, I think that there need to be clarification, and that's what I'm trying to help you get, because
Well, I think we might,
you guys are way out on left field on what really is happening there.
So,
There is gates that are locked, one's on electric mode, there's one that's in the middle that's chain lock that Chris uses, and the last gate is a sliding gate.
Mike, I think what you need to understand, you're taking the posture that we're in like attack mode here. That's not what we're doing. And the fact that just because this is the way it's always been, doesn't mean that's the way it needs to always be. So we're trying to just clean this up from a legal and a policy standpoint.
Okay, I
Is
can
all
appreciate
is
that.
all we're trying to do here. So we're trying to work through that process. We're trying to clarify what that looks like for everybody.
Right,
And then trying to make sure that everything gets done in a cleaner, more formal and professional manner than has been historically done,
okay,
okay?
I can appreciate that.
And I might add that Ross Barnacle owned the property where you are.
Right,
Sold it, and this was done under
And he-
Ross
and he-
Barnacle.
and
and
he
it was
sold
done
it
plans
to-
of operations and all those kind of things, and this has just happened in the last few years. So it hasn't always been, okay? So-
right, Ross is a very dear friend of mine for many years, and I know that he submitted, I wanna say. It would probably be almost 2 years now, he submitted a whole plan of operation to the village. And that was all approved, and there's a drawing and where the drainage goes, everything. And he spent several thousands of dollars doing that. Okay, and so I guess from my perspective, I don't quite understand why we have to go through the whole process again of what was just done.
No, it wasn't, because clearly it didn't get done correctly. And this is a
Well-
very large piece of property and there's a lot of activity going on here. And so we're just trying to make sure that we have a very clear understanding of what exactly is happening where, and that it's all documented and memorialized in our files. Now, maybe there's another file that you're alluding to that could be reviewed as well. So Ben, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, I've got several thoughts, and then it starts with this. To reiterate and underscore the importance of the hierarchy that AFW as the property owner. Has their document in this package that should kind of govern some overarching things, and then each occupant or lessee, so to speak, should have theirs. And of the whole packet, HM Brand / Creative Disposals as a lessee has the most complete,
Yep.
informative, professional, mostly correct, what we're looking for information. Okay, so just want to commend you on that, first of all. I do think AFW's plan of operation was commingled between what they're doing with their foundry and what they're trying to do with this contract for storage yard, and their information is not clear and it's not complete. So, just my personal opinion. This would probably get cleaned up easier if you did own it, because you just went through this with other property that you bought, and we appreciate. What you did in addressing and getting the special use permit into place there. I would argue that everything that you just described for us about the operation should make it simple to put a special use permit together. Because what the village has experienced, of no particular fault of your own or of this property and the activities there, is really an issue with accountability. The primary example I could point to with that would be the former Johnson and Sons paving operation. Where, hey, one person always did it this way, it's a similar use, we're just swapping out a new business doing the same thing, and then all of a sudden that operation just is much different than what the way it's always been has been. Does that mean there's problems there now? I don't know, but not necessarily. But the issue here being accountability, a special use permit is needed because as landing grows with both properties to the west and to the east of this being undeveloped but developable properties, and particularly to the west with the Holly Farm that's probably slated to happen under their conditional use permit to start within the next 5 years. I think having these things in place now, just like the village expressed to you with your other special use permit, it's as much for your protection to be able to protect what you're doing there as it is for the village to hold any current or future lessee accountable to the standards. Because even and I would argue as an exhibit to, or as evidence to kind of support my opinion there, is how difficult it was to get the owner of the property and all the lessees pull together plans of operations. I mean, we probably, the plan commission through you and your process, probably reached out, what, 4-ish months ago? And while you could very much argue, you know, what business of it is it of me or the attorney or the plan commissioners here to meddle with what you're doing. I don't think we have an interest in that, but we have an interest in knowing that, okay, if something does start to go sideways there and become a nuisance, that there's a clear document, special use permit, that is supposed to accurately capture and reflect approved uses there and have a direct line of accountability if people start to wander outside the bounds of those uses. I was here, and I would say it's much longer than 2 years ago, because I feel like Jerry Ross Barnacle was in here when you were village president.
Right.
2015 April.
I was gonna say.
That's when we
in
did
my
his.
early years.
Okay,
And
I said
he
I'm
went
wrong on
through
the
that.
dates, I apologize on that.
And he went through that process, and I would also say, okay, the last time the village approved the plan of operation on this was 2015. And just look at how different the operations there are here 8 years later.
But they're not.
And
That's the whole
perhaps,
thing.
and
They're
perhaps,
not.
and perhaps it's not a nuisance.
And I cleaned that place up. Ross had a shithole there. Okay, 47 dumpsters, stuff I took out of there.
Cool,
And
that's,
that's scrap. It
that's
cleaned
great.
the place up.
Land,
And I feel like we're being criticized for cleaning the place up.
Well,
I don't get
it's
that.
as simple as a need to say, you know, show me Ross Barnco's plan of operation and show me that it allows creative disposal and HM Brandt to use it as a switch yard.
It may have not been spelled out that it was
Exactly.
creative disposal
So
in
let's
each
spell it out.
brand, but we were there.
In 2015.
Yes,
In 2015.
yes, yes.
I
have known Ross Barnacle for 37 years.
Yeah, but
And I have always had stuff over in that yard. He
when,
let me keep bulldozers there.
when
I
you,
mean, I could go on and on and on.
okay, when you went in there about 3 years ago and
Yes, I went in there,
regraded it, excuse me,
okay,
I'm talking, and moved all the dirt and built the berm.
yep,
Did you get a grading permit?
no.
Why not? You just
You know,
did more land.
do you know that was not dirt, that was wood chips?
Yes,
That Ross had left in a pile.
yes.
Okay, and I took and beautified it and turned it and put it in that berm so it can once again burn up and turn into topsoil so that it can all get trucked out of there.
Okay.
That was the whole purpose. The grade never changed, other than strip that off, put it in a pile, and then stone the entire thing.
At the
Okay, I
back,
spent $40,000 in stone.
I don't care. No,
Well, you
at the back,
should.
I don't.
You
At the
should,
back of
because
it,
it's beautifying it.
At the back of the berm is an impacted waterway.
Yes, there is, and we're 27 feet away from that.
Okay, and what about the
Okay.
75 feet in the shoreline?
Yeah, there's 50 foot, a 75 foot, and I think there's a third designation that's even bigger than that.
Yeah. And is there any silt fence installed?
Yes, there was.
Okay. At what
Silt
dimension?
logs. Silt logs, which by the DOT and the DNR is considered as good, if not better, when
Well,
they're staked in.
yeah, but they're not
Okay.
dug into the ground. They're surfaced.
No, they're in the ground, they're in a state, it's. That is an applicable use for silt fence or silt sock.
So I think you've kind of made the point though, Mike, is that
Okay,
you said this Ross Barnacle gentleman, he redid his plan of his special use permit some time ago. But it didn't have you listed in there as using it as a switch yard, but yet you claim you were. So that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here
I think
by
again,
going through this. So
Patrick,
let us work through this process. This isn't really intended to be a debate with the public. This is for the commissioners to discuss. If you have additional feedback, we can talk after. Or talk to Ben or Hector and clear up any other details you want to provide, but right now. I'm gonna rein this back in.
Okay.
So you had some questions?
Yeah, I'd like to just go back to page 1. And which, the plan of operation of AFW. And the bottom of that, where there's number 2 unit, 1 is the boundary and number 2 lists the companies,
Lessees.
Yeah.
well, not really spelled out that way. But this is just another use of these companies being there, which I actually see as them asking for a special use to be able to do what they want to do behind in that yard. They want to have the ability to lease out space in their back. And, you know, wouldn't we deal with that the same as a storage? You know, what the storage people do, or, it seems that they need to have in their plan of operations, that this is part of our operation that's gonna operate this way. And we approve that as a special use. And then we approve who the actual people are.
Right, so that was kind of what Ben was laying out, I think, and I think what you're driving at is that. The most detailed and descriptive one really is. AFW, that needs to be like the master.
Yep.
Permit, if you will. That should cover everything that's gonna fall under it, and it should be separate from their operation as a foundry, right?
Agreed.
This should be purely inclusive of the space that they're leasing as contractor storage yards. We
It's
assume
a
that
completely different use.
they have their own
Um,
plan of operation for their foundry operation, right? So this is something completely different, and that distinction seems to be lost on that in their application, right? It's a little muddled in that sense.
Yeah, the
So-
properties happen to be adjacent, but it's no different than. You know, Hallquist Stone having 2 different quarries in the village or whatever, you know,
And-
each one requires.
And by listing these companies by name, if any one of them leaves or changes or does anything different, that then the hierarchy changes their plan of operation.
Which feels a little
Right.
cumbersome.
Yeah.
Right, you know, it's as if a potential route is AFW has a special use permit saying that they're going to. Operate a contractor storage yard and they're gonna lease that out to. They could even list the number of
Various
tenants and they're going to have all the grading and drainage on there, they're gonna have all the. areas of truck movement, like everything else. And then whoever comes in, HM Brandt or Custom Cuts, whoever, then, I think I'm sorry, AFW's master permit should also say like, hey, when someone comes in, we're going to review their operation, we're going to, make sure that they submit a special use permit of their own to the village, okay? So, and when they come through, then that special use permit dictates their hours, noise levels, etc.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be allowed
Should be a
to
little more broad.
lease to someone that hasn't been approved. I mean, that should almost be the stipulation,
Yeah,
you can't just let whoever do whatever
correct.
back there. Cause everything is gonna be a special.
It's
Right.
not,
So
Whoever.
they need
it's
to
each
get,
on brand.
Yes, right now
Okay.
it is.
And I lease to Nick and Dan, and I lease to Custom Cuts.
Okay, so
Okay,
this
they
is,
pay me, and you're
This is-
talking about a little company that's a one-man operation that. Kind of does this on the side because works for Rams as well, okay? And basically what you're saying is, we're just gonna push these guys out, because there's no way. That either one of them are gonna spend the money on doing what you're asking them to do. I go back and I tell them, okay, this is what we gotta do, and you gotta spend this money to do this and do that, do that.
I'll-
They're gonna say,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, we haven't asked
Yeah.
them to do anything.
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, well, I understand
I don't know where you're
that, okay,
coming with
but this is what I'm hearing,
No, I mean, let's just go back to the beginning.
Okay.
AFW is who
and,
is who's,
right, and
telling you can
AFW
do this.
being a business
And I'm
that they're there.
looking at this going, AFW doesn't have they don't have the right to tell you to do this, because that's not a use that was granted them to be able to do. So it's not about you, really, to me, at this point, it's not at all about you,
But-
because if I just had to do your kind of operation, I don't think that'd be a big problem.
But the thing
But I have
is,
to look at really the property owner,
Okay.
because you could leave tomorrow.
and the property owner being AFW, they don't care if I'm there or not. To them, that's why I'm here at the meeting and they're not. Because they look at this is my problem, not theirs.
But tenants can still just leave,
Well, true,
right? And so where does that leave us?
but I have a commitment there. Okay, and I gave them a commitment, there's a concrete pile there. I can't just leave that
We're
concrete
trying
pile
to-
there for AFW.
This idea that a commitment and a handshake is great, but it doesn't protect you and it doesn't protect us from ramifications that could come in the future. And that's what we want to do. We want to protect everybody. And it kind of starts
From what?
with AFW. They're the ones who decided that they're gonna just continue this use that was okay under somebody else. That doesn't work that way. You just can't decide to do something because someone else was, and whereas you never
But
got.
when did this come up then? Because it goes back to history. It really
Let's,
goes back to history.
we gotta move on here. First off, AFW should have a plan of operation for their existing facility as they had prior to the first of the year.
And then are you
And
gonna
then-
tell them they
and then-
control their
and then-
water?
Mike.
And then AFW,
Shut up. Okay, this is not a back and
Please
forth.
don't talk to me in a
I'll
bad
talk
like
like
that,
that
okay?
however I want.
Okay,
this
because
is
I'm
the
gonna
planning
respect you just like you're gonna
I don't
respect me,
respect you.
okay?
I don't respect you.
Why?
because
What
you're
did I ever
disrupting-
do to you?
You're disrupting this meeting right at the moment.
I'm asking a question,
You
sir.
get no answer.
all right.
Next we get the cops in, we throw you out.
That's
We do that too.
so the AFW then purchased this property from Arborist. AFW should have a plan of operation for this property separate. Is how it should be set up. Now where AFW made it all one, they keep it as a separate entity. So AFW really needs to do is create the plan of operation for this new property and separate it from their plan of operation that they submitted now, because that's their facility. You know, which comes under a whole bunch of other things we've always been watching for years because of the sand and all that stuff, so. That should stay separate, it should not be muddled with this, AFW should have created a separate plan of operation for another property. Listing that they're gonna be renting out parcels of this property for businesses. Okay, and then we can look at those businesses that are on there now. And say, okay, just because you might have been there for 40 years, doesn't make you legal. You can't do this in Sussex or the Falls or anywhere else. So in Landon, we require a plan of operation. So these entities that have been operating there, they've been illegally. Now what we want to do is get them on the page that says, okay, we're gonna allow this probably, but we want to set the guidelines. So that way, when people build these houses, or when people are running around and stuff like that, they're saying, what's this? You know, we can say, well, we allowed it, you know, the thing we're pointing out is, okay, we have to look at our ordinances. We, like I said, we don't have crushing, but in the quarry, we need to make sure that we're gonna allow crushing outside of the quarry. We will probably have to come up with something that makes that fit in the light industry, but that's not a light industrial item. Okay, and it's stuff like that. So what we're trying to do is just get it all back to where everybody that's doing something in land has something on file that protects them and protects the village and protects the community. That's what we're doing here. And this is why it came up, is because all of a sudden one day there was some crushing going on. And there ain't no permits for that area, and it's like, wait a minute, what's all this? Okay, you might have been back there. You were quiet until all of a sudden you got caught. And that's
I
like,
wasn't trying to hide anything.
and
Mike, I was not trying to hide
when
anything.
when Ross Barnacle passed and the land was sold, that ended every and all operations on that property, period. The only thing that could have continued on was if the son would have kept the woodland going, but he dropped out the woodland, so.
So do we have, you and Ben discussed this earlier today. Can I presume that you have a list of required edits to these? No,
No, simply because the framework needed to be established. Mr. Brandt, I appreciate that you want to continue to do business the way you've done before. But neither
But to
land,
beautify Lannon,
yeah, but
that's part of your operation that's coming up. It's all on the wall right there,
Mr. Brandt.
okay?
you
But yet
got-
you
Mr.
keep
Brandt,
fighting businesses.
Do you want to hear what I have to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reality is, if you recall, when I first spoke, we had these rules on the book. They were not unfortunately enforced. We
But
have-
when did these become on the books? That would be a question. What year?
1997.
Okay. And we did have one monumental event. Mr. Barnacle passed. And whatever legal rights he believed he had, he does not have, I can tell you that. Okay, so what we're trying to do is restart the clock here.
Okay,
And the purpose is to protect your interests. As
you don't
well
have
as,
to protect my interest. I will protect my interest.
I know, but also protect, as you heard the gentleman here, protect the village's interests.
I respect
And the
that.
village's interests are not only the present interests, but the future interests. We've got a lot of
respect that as well.
residential properties coming on board. We want to maximize, because we're a small community, we want to maximize the tax base. And having a residential area next to an area that has something more vigorous than a light industrial area is going to depress that. It's just common sense. So we're trying to plan for the future. Right now, I don't doubt that you haven't had complaints and you're not intending to harm anybody. But we've got to look to the future for the interests of the village. So my recommendation, speaking with Ben, is that we get the owner, AFW, even though you have an interest to buy this, some of this land, all of this land, I have no idea. But AFW has to come in with a detailed two-part plan. One plan recognizes and adopts what it has for the boundary, and another plan laid out what it plans to do. Complicating the situation is that if you go on the GIS site, they have a hodgepodge of 4 different parcels of land. And those 4 different parcels of land have different acreage, ranging everywhere from 0.6342 acres up to 7.7596 acres, for a total of 12.2343 acres. And when you look at what has been submitted, it's impossible for the village to go in and enforce against any subtenant there that they're outside of their area. And things aren't even identified. For example, there's a mound here right beneath the area there. I couldn't tell from the GIS, blowing it up as much as possible. Those kinds of things need to be addressed. If your subtenants are not in a position, and I understood that these other people there or parties there are not subtenants of AFW, but yours, is that a correct understanding?
Correct.
Okay. If they're not in a financial position to accommodate the needs of the village, you're gonna have to think long and hard about how you want to handle it. One way would be for you to assist them. The other way for you to say to them, you can't comply with the rules, and I don't want the village coming after me for violating it. And bid them goodbye.
Or there's another way, and I just move out of there, and then that hurts AFW, correct? Which you're hurting another business in Lannon, which
The
is,
purpose of the village is to protect its citizens, not any.
if
particular business.
there's violations, yeah. I would 100% agree, but if there's not violations and there's beautification and they're following. Each outfit's following the rules, how is that helping the village? I mean,
Please take.
all you're talking about is property next door that you wanna put homes in or apartments,
We've already
okay?
committed to that. We've already committed to that. That's the reality. We established a TIF district. We awarded conditional use permits. So it isn't a hope for thing, it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
And so please, when you get home, take a look at those rules.
I'll read them, so will the attorney.
The thing is that we haven't shut anything down. We don't shut anything down. We said, hey, we need plan of operations on file. We haven't shut anything down. I don't know why we're getting so hard out. We haven't said no. We're just saying, we're gonna have to follow and set the stuff up, and we're gonna have to fill out the paperwork. And you're gonna have to get the special permits and stuff like that. Anybody that's over here is gonna have to get special permits.
And there's gonna be an A, then a B, and then a C.
Yeah,
And we,
we can't say, well, okay, just keep going. But we could have said, that's it, tell the police to go down there. And whoever's there, give them tickets, because they ain't supposed to be there without a plan of operations. We don't shut companies down, we don't shut businesses down. We work with them, but we also make sure that they work with the village. That's what we're trying to do here. So, we've been going at it, and we can't even get past AFW part of their paperwork, and I don't see AFW sitting here,
Mike, if I could just interject for a second, okay? AFW doesn't, they don't even wanna deal with this. okay?
They have to.
So it's not, that's what I'm saying. So in essence, what's gonna happen is 3 businesses that are there right now. Couple of small guys that are trying to make a few bucks, okay, they're all gonna have to move out.
Then-
Because
Let
AFW
them
is
operate
not gonna
illegally
want to
without
do that.
permit, then they're gonna have to leave.
The what?
If we can't let them continue to operate illegally without proper approvals like we require of
Well,
every
I-
other business, then they're gonna have to move their illegal operation out of the village.
That's right. And that's what's
Well,
gonna
you see the
happen,
irony there?
Ben.
You see the irony though? It's just that,
It's not me that doesn't wanna deal with it. AFW is not gonna.
understood,
That's why I'm here.
But they own
They're
the
not
property.
understood.
They own the
I
property.
took everything that I submitted to you guys and submitted to them. Everything.
Understood. I'm
So-
just saying, it's the paradox is,
What I'm gonna suggest is that you. I mean, if you're this passionate about it and you're this set on helping push this forward. If they're not gonna do it, you're gonna have to be the driving force, so I would consider. Whether or not you wanna take that on or not, which I believe you probably do. And then,
To be honest, Patrick, if I have to go through another 4-month fight and $15,000 with attorneys and everything I would have to do, no, I'd rather not pursue the
I
property
think,
and move forward with the property and move that operation out. And to be real honest with you, if that would be the case, I would probably move that operation out too.
Okay.
That I just got down the road, because apparently. The village is very anti-business.
No,
That's
the
all I can
only-
see and all I can, that's what I hear. I hear it from other business people.
Mike, the only person making this a fight is you. Right now,
Okay.
frankly, we are simply here to try to help shepherd this through
Okay.
a proper process. You're the only one making this a fight. You're the only one coming in here with an antagonistic posture.
Well, I'm not understanding
Disruptive
why we
behavior,
just submitted everything that
interrupting
you
people
asked.
when they're trying to speak. You're not letting us conduct this in an orderly fashion, and that is not helping your case, sir.
Okay,
Okay?
but did
You
we,
come in here with a defensive posture right out of the gate. When we're here to try to help facilitate this and just formalize the process, that's all we're doing. It's not a fight for us. I'm a small businessman. Why the hell would I want to drive out businesses? That's just a fallacy running around in your own mind, frankly.
well, I guess if I can respond to that.
I'd like. to-
Last response, and then we're moving on.
If we're putting apartment buildings right next door or houses right next door. To a place that you have a foundry and you have an operation which I bring in trucks. With dumpsters and I would probably guess that the company is gonna grow, and so I'll have more dumpsters. The whole yard is full of dumpsters. And you're having a property next door with all kinds of people that are gonna possibly be upset that there's trucks coming in and out, or there's noise or whatever. The foundry starts at about 3 o'clock in the morning. If you ever went out there and just listened. And then smelt the odor that's coming out of the foundry. Frankly, I don't know what apartment building or what people would wanna live right next to that. And instead, why don't you kind of look at maybe turning that into a small industrial park? And let businesses, maybe electricians they have these buildings that Sussex put them up, and they're like a shop, and they have a small office inside. All the equipment is inside. And they're making money hand over fist.
Well, we're not gonna debate
Well, I
As the planning and
understand that,
zoning
okay, but
here tonight, okay?
I understand it, but I guess what I need then, because I thought. That I submitted and did what we needed to do. And apparently not.
Correct.
All I need to know is what the heck you want me to do. So that I can
I kind of think that.
analyze
I kinda
what it's
think
gonna
that
cost me.
I wanna say something next. you did exactly what I hoped you would do. I did not expect to see AFW do what they did. Whether it's your, contention that they won't do anything better than that. They have to do something better than that. It's not a choice. Because now we know. We know what's going on. They own the property. They must be responsible for it. That's what being a responsible business owner in our community means. Now, I've gone through it. I've done it. It is common sense. They can ignore it. They can say, I don't want to. But yet, and then we can just say, all right, just clear it all out. If you don't want to have anything going on back there, but if you do want to be a responsible business owner and allow something good to be this property to be used for, then just come and present to us how you're going to go about allowing this. Then you can bring us all these really nice, probably just fine special uses, of which, we'll nitpick a little bit here and there on, and you'll explain yourself to us. And in the end, we'll probably say, okay.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
What's amazing is for AFW Foundry, for the years that we had them up here, coming through with their expansions and their storages and their silos and all this stuff, and their lawyers are all here. Why aren't they here tonight? They did it then, they had no problem being here. AFW, just needs to do is create a plan of operation for that property. That's what they need to create, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table this action until the proper paperwork is submitted
By AFW,
by anybody.
okay. Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any last comments from staff?
Just to reiterate, the proper paperwork is gonna be a special use permit.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor?
Special use permit.
Put your vote.
As Hector read in the ordinance, contractor storage yards require a special use permit.
Wouldn't AFW need to
Have a motion there.
have that
This
as
is a motion.
well?
We had a motion
is it
and a
part of the
second.
discussion?
Well, we had a motion and a second. I called it to a vote.
And you're the only one that didn't vote.
Did we have a vote?
It's a whole time.
Okay. Next item.
If you want to clarify more with them after
Okay, yeah.
on the phone or email, so. Item number 8, discussion and possible action regarding landscape plans for Swall Development, Rock Point Village, land in Wisconsin, 53046. This is for some boulevard stuff and I believe a sign area, but
Also the neighbors.
not a sign permit, right? Ben?
Okay, so I made a bit of a mistake in writing the agenda item here. There's two things going on. The developer is here, Kevin, you all recognize. They're planning to complete their landscape installations this fall. I know that there's been a lot of discussions, requests of the plan commission, some concessions by the developer, and those landscape plans have evolved. And the last time the plan commission acted on this, it was a different commission that was earlier in the year and gave them approval on, adding some of the screening on the south end of the property, which is phase 1, etc. Going back to last year, we had issued a letter of a landscape review, which cited some things that need to get corrected. Now here they are. Those are just some examples of some of the things that went on, along with a walking tour with the plan commission. And they made some revisions to their plan then. So I wanted to get this landscape plan before you, even though the plan commission has acted on it previously. To just kind of demonstrate their intent to kind of check some of the final boxes with the landscaping, which includes the landscape islands. They're consistent with what was approved previously, and more wanted to get that in front of you to show what exactly they intend to do. And if you have some of the email correspondence in your packet, I don't know if you do or not. But I had sent the developer a list of kind of 7 questions or comments on it. They replied to every single one of them. I would like to actually read through those here. They're brief, and it goes to kind of demonstrate how some of these loose ends are getting tied together, how things in the past have been addressed. So that was the intent with the landscape thing, is almost more informative, and to give you this whole status update we've been looking for a while. And Kevin wasn't planning on being here, but I requested him to come, and I appreciate him showing up for that. The second part of it is the sign. So some of you who may have been around for the plan commission walkthrough in the past recall that the sign was supposed to be on the back of this garage.
Right.
And originally, and the direction that was given at the time, and I would say agreed to in some form or fashion, I don't know if in like a formal motion type of a sense, was to not put the sign on the back of the garage, because it was set too far back. And if you were traveling, I believe if you're traveling southbound from the north, you wouldn't see the sign until you were past the sign. It's one of the resounding
Northbound because of the trees.
Okay.
Because of the tree line, yeah.
Which obviously the ability for people to find the correct entrance has been a point of contention over time here also. Also, there was a bit of an irony in that this is called Rock Point Village, but there weren't a lot of rock elements in it. So what they kind of agreed to, in my opinion, is an upgrade, is to go toward a more of a large granite stone slab engraved monument sign, which is kind of consistent with what other developments are doing anyways. So I think that is the genuine revision to the landscape plan, is to move the sign forward into a signed area. You can see as demonstrated in this printout here. Not only is that sign itself going to be 6 feet by 6 feet, but it looks like it's kind of backed up with some ornamental trees behind, which should help shield the garage. I know there's been complaints about that garage. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing to lay your eyes on when you first enter in there, and then a planter bed in the front. So overall, I feel it's a practical improvement to bring the sign forward, and I think it's an enhancement from the perspective of the aesthetic. So if there's something on the landscape plan to comment on or to take action on, I think it would be to approve the new sign location, if you were so inclined.
The only thing I have on that, just on the sign location, is I wish it would have been shown here, because I have no idea where in that circle, how far back from the fire hydrant, the curve, where in that corner, or, you know, I mean, it's like, it's lost right now.
And what I can tell you is when we went on that walkthrough, this is in an area where we just marked up, okay, let's put a couple bushes here or something to kind of help shield the garage. And let's try to move the sign actually into the
Median.
landscape median.
Yeah.
What Kevin and I found when he went through design on his end and I reviewed it, is that impedes the vision triangle.
Yep.
So then we're thinking, okay, maybe on the south side of the entrance, you could get it up on the berm and have something that kind of sticks out, and just from a design and installation perspective, it wasn't working out. So while it's not shown on the site plan, Mike, it's in the same spot when the plan commission previously approved a revision to the phase 1 landscaping, where those couple bushes were going to be in front of the garage. Now that's where the monument sign would be.
Okay, and then the other thing is that, I wasn't around when is there gonna be some sort of shielding of the garage or the buildings up there on the Custard Main Street corner?
Yeah, phase three.
Great question. Since you brought that up,
Not down Custard, but on the corner.
no, I understand.
You know,
I've got a printout of just phase three that we'll talk about, but let me set the table by reading kind of my 7 initial comments to Kevin and his responses. So, my first comment was on the landscape island. I said it'd be nice if it was edged with a layer or 2 of land and stone, maybe if it was stepped up a little bit in the middle, or even just stepped up on the east back side of the island where it's out of the vision triangle. I think that would add to the Rock Point aesthetic. Again, this is an enhancement request, not something he's required to based on what's been previously approved. Kevin's response, maybe we can add some land and stone accents. We do have a land and stone sign though to capitalize on that look. My second comment, natural privacy wall additions. You were also going to add some tall grasses as discussed at a past plan commission meeting. Is that still the plan? I recall from that same meeting that nothing additional was going to happen along Don Summers' property line. Is that still the plan? His response, we replaced the tall grasses with arborvitaes. We took out all the shorter bushes and replaced them. We had commented previously that a lot of those were dying. Hopefully this will provide enough coverage. I provided Don with a no trespassing sign. I think someone was here and commented on that the past meeting also. My third point, sign. I really like the concept of your engraved stone sign. Again, plays nicely into the Rock Point aesthetic. Will it be lighted? I hope so. Should probably have another line of smaller text with some address references. You know, number through number, Rock Point Way. Kevin's response, we usually don't put addresses on the monument sign, but yes, the sign will be lighted. My fourth comment, what's the anticipated schedule for the installations? His response, Monday sign and island landscaping will be done. He's talking about October 2nd. Not sure if the last 3.5 days of rain impacts that or not. The arborvitaes are already in, as are the northern spruces. The rest of phase 3 should be done by the end of next week. He's talking about by, what would that be, October 8th, 7th, something like that.
We're still on schedule? Yeah.
My comment 5, we sent a report about some failing landscape in previous phases several months ago and potentially even last fall. Has any progress been made on that? His response, yes, I believe most if not all of this was rectified, and he described some of that earlier in the same email. My comment 6, phase 3 landscaping, and this drives what you're kind of touching on. This was not included here, but I think we may have a similar screening issue over along Custer Lane, in that it'll probably be a solid 5 years or more before the natural screen fills in. What's the schedule for phase 3 installation? Can you send the latest plan? And any thoughts on doing something over there to improve screening in the short term? I recall at a prior plan commission meeting that a couple of landscapers in the crowd had suggested green giant arborvitae as rapid growing, tall, wide screen options. I'm not suggesting you go in that direction now, but I'd like to understand the plan for phase 3. Kevin responded by sending the previously approved phase 3 landscape plan. And said, I don't think completely screening the apartments is a great idea. I think the screen should fill in over time and provide a nice buffer without completely screening everything off. I attached what the landscaper is installing. If we need to, we can add something along the beam berm near Custer, and I'll touch more on that in a second. My comment 7, phase 1 landscaping across the entrance, across from the entrance. So this would be on the other side of Main Street from the entrance. I said, what's the status of planting some evergreens or shrubs across from the main entrance to address light glare on the neighbors? I know that's been discussed on and off the last few years. His response, our landscaper met with the neighbors and added a few plantings that should be taken care of. So the next thing, that's kind of an overall status here. The next thing I wanna get at is, what you're talking about, Mike, is this corner up here of Custer and Main.
Well, of the land.
Yeah, and the berms there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you. We realized after they got approved, and this was approved, that we were gonna have a bit of a coordination issue. Because one of the reasons why they didn't show more landscaping there is the village took on the Custer Lane project. The developer did some clearing and grubbing of existing trees on their side of the property to do what they needed to do. The village did some clearing and grubbing along there, and tree removal in order to widen the road. Get some curb and gutter in there and get the pedestrian path in there, which is separated from the road. So in both of those instances, my recollection is they went first and we were going to maybe take a look at landscaping as part of Custer Lane. We didn't want to necessarily make any final decisions on landscaping along Custer Lane until they had stuff built. So while they got this approved, we designed and built Custer Lane, they've built the buildings, and now here we are.
I think we also thought there were gonna be some trees left.
Yeah,
Because we cut down a bunch of trees on our side and then you cut down a bunch of trees on your side. And
right,
then all of a sudden we were left with no more trees.
right.
The only thing I'm looking at, Ben, is if you can kind of move your finger right there, just that area right there is the only thing I'm looking at is
That
there.
berm right on the
Right,
corner.
right where the sidewalk sort of stops instead of turning back to Custer Lane, which I don't understand why the village didn't do that, but
Oh, I got an answer for that.
you know, but if that's the only, you know, there, if you just come back a little bit, just, you know, a couple items right there, Kevin, is all I'm looking at. I don't care about the rest of Custer Lane. That's.
There's another 15 minutes to the story.
Yeah,
You know, the rest of Custer Lane, you know, I like that openness because you can sort of get an idea when someone's coming through that bike path.
sure, right.
But the only thing I like to caution against is, with the rain for the last 3 days, the contractors are parking between the road and the
Yeah.
pathway and they're running it. You're gonna have to kind of like get them to fix it now. You know,
So that's kind of how we got here and why that corner looks kind of bare. Now. Warren Heyer is the neighbor across from Custer Lane. He did reach out. He's a pretty gentle person. I would call it an inquiry, but you know, sort of complaint about. Hey, I'm looking at the back of those garages over there. They're just plain, they're all siding, they look tacky. Are the dumpsters supposed to have enclosures? You know, used to look at a forest. I get it, this is how development goes, but you know, at the same time, it doesn't look great. It just looks so bare. Okay, that's my paraphrase version of what he said. Knowing that they're intending to install phase 3 landscaping next week. Kevin,
Finishing it. It's
finishing.
pretty much all installed, except for what's side, the back side.
Backside 16.
The backside of 16.
Okay, so. Kevin actually suggested. Hey, we're willing to make some enhancements here. Let's meet Friday, and by Friday I mean tomorrow. I suggested to Kevin. Hey, just to kind of. Circumvent the way these things are gonna go. How would you feel about inviting Warren to that meeting? He was
We also
cautious.
have to make a decision, like, about what we're gonna do probably in the next like 2 weeks.
So-
Realistically with landscaping.
He cautiously agreed to have Warren be there with the little, you know, obviously we. Don't wanna hand the keys over to the neighbor to make some decisions here. But so that they can understand what's being discussed, because I think what all of us. Wanna try to avoid is whatever gets installed, still at the end of the day, leads to complaints, etc. So. That's kind of where we're at on the landscape story. That's where we're at with phase 3. That also provides a summary. Kevin and I were talking before the meeting here, all the final lift of asphalt is going in. Wow. So things are really coming together quickly. I think they're showing some interest, obviously, in getting all these things finalized. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on where that is. The only thing that's maybe a little bit ambiguous that you provide some comments on are these dumpster enclosures.
Right, we're working on those, we will screen those, we'll present what we're going to be using, but that was kind of the last ticket item that we're.
Yeah, I recall from when the approvals were first granted, 3 years ago or whatever. You had said, oh, we do the enclosures at the end because we use leftover materials that they match, et cetera. So I think we'll just be looking for timing on that.
Probably before the end of October.
I'd say for sure.
Okay.
Basically, I think a couple bushes or something like that to break up them walls, in the garage. As far as the one thing that I remember the walkthrough that we did last fall, Kevin, was we had the plan commission here asked you to put in one of the giant arborvitaes in that front corner by Mr. Summers' property. There was just one that was required in the meeting minutes of a 3 to 4 footer, space, something between the down in this corner here. I forgot exactly where it lines up with some trees. That was the only thing that we were requiring from all that walkthrough, where you were looking at the wall that was washing out and everything like that. And when you were talking about that you're gonna be putting in a medium island and stuff like that.
See, my recollection from that conversation is at the time we we're gonna do those grasses all the way down.
Yeah.
That's what we were gonna do, and then I got a call from someone at the village saying, oh, Don doesn't want the grasses. Because of a bunch of different issues, so I said, okay, then I'll.
Yeah, I believe the planning commission just asked for just that one giant arborvitae, in that front corner there.
I don't mean to discredit that, because I don't have my notes. I certainly don't have the minutes. I have the minutes.
Yeah, that was like, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Because my recollection is coming away from that meeting is we were debating about what could be done, and what was decided was, okay, then we're just gonna do nothing. Along Don's property line.
Don't remember
Yeah,
that.
it's up to them.
Well, it was kind of, I think, along the lines of they've done everything they were asked, was required of them to do. Now we're going above and beyond, asking them to do something more.
What is going up on the property line? That's my question.
So I don't know that.
On whose property line?
Jeannie Crosby's in mine. Mostly Jeannie, the screening of the lights, and I invited people to go back there when it would start and stand in her backyard. She had asked for screening and I had asked for something. And my reason against the grass is Hector recommended against it because I did some research. Certain parts of that grass grow 10 feet tall. And if you allow it, you lose all control over what that is. And that is rodent attraction.
Brenda, when I bring up the 10/27/22 meeting minutes for plan commission, I get a 404 code.
Yeah, sounds like a clerk problem to me.
Because we had the walkthrough on 10/18 and on the 10/27 agenda. So was discussing the development.
I also don't think that the intent of this item was to go through and piecemeal.
No, but we want
entire
to
sites.
finish up phase one. Because, like I said, now it's on this island. I thought there was at one time discussion that the sign was gonna be on the island. Obviously, the sign isn't there now. And I'm trying to, so just kind of looking at the island. Just trying to picture what some of this material is gonna look like. When I drove over there and started when I'm leaving, I'm looking at, well, I'm pretty far out beyond everything that's gonna grow there, so I don't see that being a problem with the site, so. You know, it's a nice island then, and I was just trying to figure out where your sign was, that I don't see, and then when you're talking about, Ben, when you're talking about land and stone. You're talking about land and stone around the Rock Point sign or land and stone mixed into this island?
My suggestion to him was mixed into the island, but
I think that's what we're gonna do, yeah, there are a
But
couple of.
that
we're gonna
big,
take
what,
some-
that big weather rock like?
Yeah, we're gonna take just basically what you have there, kind of right in front of you here. Those big pieces of stone, and we're gonna put a couple of them throughout the island.
Are those, was this done by a landscape architect?
Yeah,
So these are all salt tolerant plants?
yes, yep.
Good call.
I have the motion on that meeting, there was a couple of them that failed. Then the one that passed was motion to recommend to developer to install a minimum of 2 4-foot green giant arborvitae between existing plantings and Main Street. No grass along Summers property, and all plantings and improvement are responsible of neighboring properties.
The Rock Point sign, what's it gonna be sitting on?
Yeah, that was my other question.
Oh, because that's
You're
gonna be,
pour a slab, right?
We're gonna have.
yeah, and then the lighting will be upward into it.
Upward, yep.
So did you run electrical for that
We're
already?
going to do that.
It's not all we have. No, we don't really want to.
Cause I don't see the sign permit application here, so I kinda like, I mean, we're looking at this and the Monticelli, kinda like says, what was the name of that?
Green Hills.
Green Hills logo, so. Bobby must be having a bad day.
Oh,
Did you guys submit a sign permit application?
No, I don't think so, no.
Now, are we gonna go with that?
That is, yeah.
That is for sure the version, okay.
what's your desired date to install this?
Desired?
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah.
We were
Like tomorrow?
I think not, well, I don't know if I'm permanent. yet,
Next
but
week or 2
next
weeks
week.
or?
But they gotta pour a slab for it underneath it, otherwise it,
Don't come to me. I don't want nothing to do with it.
Well, where your fast signs it with it.
A little heavy.
For what it's worth, this replaces, this is classified as a subdivision identification sign, which ordinances limit the area to 32 square feet. I believe we've given exceptions in the past, just as an FYI, some of them do that V-shaped sign. So it's like 32 feet per face kind of thing. If this entire sign is 6 by 6, and you imagine the sign portion of this as 5 by 5 or 5 by 4, it fits within that 32 feet. As far as the number of signs and the type of signs, size of the sign, I don't have any issues with it conforming to the ordinance.
Can you have them do something with the font though?
Yeah,
This is horrible.
okay.
Must be a sign guy.
No, I just have eyes. I mean, this is horrible.
What's wrong with the font?
The fonts. I'll get them to fix the font, we'll find a better font.
You just did this at home on a computer. didn't you?
I did MS Paint. I did really go back to find that, yeah, I'll change.
The other thing is that those wavy red things, out there, the wavy red flags,
Yeah,
those
we're
are
gonna,
illegal.
we're gonna get rid of those, because now we're done leasing,
Yeah,
so, yeah.
So, yeah, it's real soon because they're not allowed in land.
Yeah, we'll get them down tomorrow, because they're supposed to go to a different property.
That's
actually,
good.
And they somehow ended up missing one of them.
Again, I apologize for putting you in that position of not having the correct agenda item in the packet here. Don't know what the next step.
I wanna make this as 2 motions then. One will be to approve the motions for, I make a motion to approve the island entrance area landscaping.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second on the island landscaping. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I make a motion that we approve a sign for Rock Point Storage, Rock Point Village, sorry, Rock Point Village. But he has to submit the sign application prior to installing the sign.
It's $125.
Yeah, we got some potholes we want to.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, Ben?
Sometimes the plan commission will designate a representative to review the application. And I would suggest part of the application material would be showing where it is on the site plan. And if folks were agreeable, I would nominate Commissioner Grimm to review that location with me before the clerk issues that permit.
Who's gonna approve the bond?
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that. I thought the bond was fucking.
The only thing I see is some guy over there to Corey going. Oh, well, it's point, it's hot now, that's what's up. I amend my motion to include that.
I'll amend my second.
Okay, we have amended motion and second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
To adjourn.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Really, that was better than.